Now, the Fed also watching Europe very cautiously, very carefully to see what comes out of that ECB meeting on Thursday. Moody's downgrading European Union credit today. What kind of action do you think we may get from the ECB?
Well, Mario Draghi is in really the unenviable position of having to balance these tensions where there's a massive slowdown going on in Europe, even in Germany now, which is probably going to slip into recession territory for Q3, against the idea that there's a lot of bailout fatigue among the electorate, and particularly in Germany, where the High Court is set to rule on the constitutionality of the ECB undertaking the sorts of asset purchases that they've undertaken. Draghi has to toe this very fine line where he may get interference from political actors if he does too much, but he's going to continue to see slowdowns if he does too little.
What do you think Bernanke is looking to hear from the ECB?
I think Bernanke wants to know what the ECB's plan actually is.
Does the ECB know what its plan actually is?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure that the ECB knows what Germany is going to allow their plan to be, and that's why we're waiting for this September 12th decision from the High Court. But until we know that information, I think it's unlikely that Bernanke is going to move to combat European problems and the downside risks that they pose to the U.S. economy, because we just don't know how big the intervention is going to be from the European Central Bank.
But back to the U.S., are we in a situation where it's like, pardon the bad metaphor, but giving a drug addict more and more drugs? I mean, the impact just lessens every single time we inject more. What is the Fed left to do? Well, and will it have the desired impact anyway?
I think what we're looking at in the U.S. is a situation where more fundamental reforms have to be undertaken. If you were to make a list of, say, 20 things that could be done to spur growth in the U.S., Fed policy would be 18 or 19 on that list. It would be pretty far down. And so until you see, say, Congress act to remove some uncertainty, or Congress act to sort of set the tax environment better, or some reforms to the labor market, and those sorts of things, we're not going to see the sorts of change that Bernanke would love to see from his stimulus measures.
So too much pressure on the Fed, but also the notion that we have elections coming up. I mean, is it likely that Bernanke is going to do anything ahead of the elections? And also Mitt Romney saying, hey, if he gets elected, Bernanke's getting the boot.
Well, we've sort of heard this saber rattling before against the Fed, where they're not very popular in, say, Republican eyes. But I think Bernanke realizes that first and foremost, the credibility of a central banker is extremely important. And so I think he'll act in an insulated way from the political process. He'll act according to what's happening in those real economic variables that he watches, and hopefully we'll get a politically insulated result.
Okay, we'll be watching the Fed and the ECB. Thank you so much.